do you think having what seems like an abundance of options today, do you think that helps us finding someone because we have more X or? No.
I don't, I think it's like a catch-22 because like someone pointed out to me the other day, we meet people that we would never normally, come into contact with, right?
100%.
There's Tony Tone, who's like an incredible, she's an influencer, she's stunning, she's beautiful, she does a lot of stuff about dating and relationships. I've known her for years.
Yeah.
And because she was on social media, she met a guy who's in America and they've just got engaged. So they've been doing a long distance relationship for the last couple of years and now they're getting married. But had they not both been on social media and had it not existed, they would never have met each other. So, whether it's dating apps or whether it's social media, there are these kind of like pros. But I also think there are some cons. And yes, I think the kind of the idea that we have loads of options, which I don't think we necessarily do. I think it's just this kind of like
perception, illusion.
But I feel like once someone makes a choice about what they want, like it doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? So I think if you're dating with intention and your intention is I want a committed relationship, then I think that's what you're going to look for, right? So you're going to be like, right, this person has the qualities that that I'm looking for, and I'm going to invest in this person. Whereas if you're someone who's like, I've got one foot in, I've got one foot out. So she's not, well, he's nice, well, she's, and then then I think it maybe is a bit more appealing.
I completely agree. I think it's making the choice though, because I think not everyone. But I think we do live in a culture where people will be speaking to multiple people at the same time, dating multiple people at the same time. So, and a lot of the time, the decision to fully invest, it usually doesn't come for most people. I don't think it comes within the first month, maybe in the first 2 months, maybe not even the first 6 months, right? Some people it does, but I think the majority of people it doesn't. And so it's getting to the point of, I'm dating this person, but also there's all these other people as well. And generally speaking, you can disagree here. Generally speaking, women tend to have more of abundance than men. So a very small percentage of men that, that have a level of abundance. But I also think,
I think that's very true. But there's that kind of dating app statistic about, it's like 1% of men get, or 10% of men get all of the, which I'm sure on dating apps is very true. But I think that dating apps are a bad measure of attraction. And I say this all the time because all you're going off is someone's physical appearance. When you meet someone in reality, you're going off chemistry and connection and how they make you feel. And it's so different. So people that you would say no to on a dating app, if you met them in real life, you'd be like, oh my God, like I really like this person.
Yeah.
And so I can see how that happens. Because also I think with women, I've spoken to some people about this recently. It's like you have some kind of like cutoff points, because otherwise how do you decide who to say yes to and who to say no to and not be overwhelmed? So, it might be height, it might be, like location, it might be, but you have to have some kind of like
filter.
Yeah, like filter.
Yeah, I get that.
And then you're filtering out people that if you met in real life, you might really, really like.
I completely agree with you. And I've heard so many times, like women in very happy relationships being like, if I saw my boyfriend on a dating app, I probably would have swiped left, right? And I agree in terms of maybe the dating app statistic doesn't represent the full picture. I do think it's an extreme of what we see though. And the reason I say this is because, you can tell me and maybe it's different. I remember from like growing up in like different school years and stuff like that, there would be like a small group of guys that would get with the majority of the girls a lot of the time. Or like a lot of the girls would fancy like a very small group of the guys. So while it's not like 100 to 1, I do think it is very, it's the Pareto principle. Do you know what that is? So the Pareto principle is basically where 20% of mass is responsible for 80% of production. And it's almost like it's like a natural universal law. It seems to just happen naturally. So for example, 20% of suns in our galaxy hold 80% of the galaxy's mass. 20% of cities in the world hold 80% of the world's population. 20% of authors are responsible for 80% of books sold. 20% of actors get 80% of the jobs. That's why we see the same actors all the time. So when you have like a free market, and if you take like dating, social media, dating apps and stuff, it generally tends to skew that way. Even in companies, you have like 20% of people end up making like 80% of the revenue for the company. And so, but yeah, now we have the internet. So like you said, like that person you said, you can match with the hot shot from America, you know, and so like maybe the guy who lives around the corner from you or who's in a yoga class or whatever, maybe he doesn't get so much of a chance. But equally that can happen for women as well. Guys can match with whoever. If there was something you could change about the current dating culture, what would you change?
There was like a lie detector, so people had to tell the truth.
I don't disagree.
Because I think, you know, I feel like there's a lot of people who don't know themselves.
Yeah.
And so I think that they will say they want something, but they don't necessarily have the like skills to be able to nurture that thing that they want. And
within themselves or for someone else?
I mean, like within themselves. Like if someone says that they want, you know, like especially I'm talking about people, you know, that are kind of in my age range. So we're grown people,
sure.
And you're saying you want a committed relationship, but then you have terrible communication skills. You're really defensive. You don't know how to take feedback, like all of those different things. Like if you don't know how to do that, how can you have a constructive relationship? You know, and I think that there's a lot of people that what they do is they are reactive and project outwards, but they haven't yet taken accountability or responsibility for the parts of them that need work to be able to attain what they want. And I think there's, you know, I've certainly encountered people like that. A lot of my friends have encountered people like that as well. And, you know, again, I can't speak for everyone, but I do think there is, that's a problem. Like how you can't have a relationship with someone, I don't think that you can't like communicate with and feel like you can go to and say what you need to say in a, you know, compassionate, kind and caring way and not have them hear it.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. I don't speak for all men, but I think a lot of guys would ask, you're an attractive woman, you've done this work on yourself, and especially, you know, like you said, from 12 years ago, you went journey, you know, you got to this point. And correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of guys would be like, you must have gotten a lot of attention from a lot of different guys. You're operating from a healthy space. So
why am I still single? Is that what
not why you're single, but I guess this is where guys think, well, she must have crazy high standards because you'll be getting from attraction, I assume, from all kinds of guys.
I think it's such a misconception, like that
you don't get attention.
It doesn't happen. Like it doesn't happen. So very rarely, like people like slide into my DMs. Very rarely, like I think I've started being way more proactive, like the last 12 months in terms of when I'm out, like you know, making sure that I kind of try and speak to people if I find them attractive, or you know, that I'm much better at like my social cues in terms of like eye contact and etc. Because I think, you know, some of my friends will just say it's like, if I meet you and I'm really nice to you and we get on really well, it means that I don't fancy you. But if you think I'm an absolute weirdo, it means that I do fancy you. Do you know what I mean? So it's like,
sure.
I think like I've had to kind of try and learn to be better at, you know, being more open to the invitation of people talking to me.
Sure.
So yeah, but I think that's a misconception that people have about, you know, oh, she's probably got like loads of guys chasing her, and it just has never really been like that. It just hasn't. So
not that you know of, maybe you don't know.
Or but if they haven't told me, how do I know? Do you know
that's
what I mean?
My point.
So I think that that is like it's a big misconception. And then, you know, again with like dating apps for my own, you know, kind of mental health and etc. I might be on there for, you know, a few weeks and then I'll come off again and have a few months of not being on there, and then I might go on because it takes up time and energy.
It's like a part-time job if you're doing it.
So yeah, sure. I think it's honestly one of those things. And although I started working on myself at 28, in that time I have had a relationship, you know, between then and now. But that's a lot of work to do. So I guess in terms of me being this version of me now, which is ever evolving, I'm here now, but it's been probably like the last couple of years everything has been accelerated in terms of my learning around relationships, attachment styles, you know, I think really rooting down into my own like self-worth and value, and just knowing that like I can't, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and just letting go. Like I said right at the start, like that kind of, I'm not going to chase people. I'm not going to stress over people. If they're for me, then they're for me. And I know a lot of people say this, and I used to be the person that's like, why haven't they texted me? What's wrong with me? You know, I used to be all of that, but I've had to really, you know, navigate that. And I think what we do, a lot of people who, you know, quote unquote work on themselves, whether it's therapy, whether it's coaching, whether it's, you know, kind of journaling and all of those things, you get you're on your own, and you get yourself into this place where you're like, I feel great, I'm balanced, everything's good. But also, you're not around anyone that's going to trigger any of the shit that you actually really need to work on.
Sure,
so you get yourself
100%.
into this good place, and then you meet someone and it triggers, you know, like childhood wounds, trauma, etc.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh shit, now that's where I need to work. And so I've had those, you know, like those experiences over the last couple of years, and it's really allowed me, instead of going, you know, like reflecting outwardly, it's like, what does this mean about me? Like, how can I use this to learn and grow, and you know, maybe stop picking the same kind of people, or giving those people chances, or so I think that's my kind of way at looking at things. It's like, if so there was someone who I was supposed to go on a date with, and then they just, on the day of the date, I just didn't hear from them, and I've never heard from them again. I know this happens to loads of people, but I'm just like, that person's just not meant for me. I don't think about it. I haven't thought about it. I just don't care. Like, it's done.
The art
That's
of
it.
letting go.
Yeah. Right.
100%.
And then, you know, there's like someone that I met recently who his communication is a little bit here and there. And that used to really stress me out. But now I just don't care, because I'm just like, either it will be something or it won't be something. You know, that's it. Done.
If you're loving this episode and these kinds of conversations, then I want to give you something. We recently launched the Kits Angels community. This is a sisterhood for women who are tired of what the dating scene has given them and are ready to take their love lives to the next level. It's a space for you as a woman to not be alone in your journey to love, where we learn, talk, and share our experiences as part of a strong sisterhood, with some leadership and guidance from yours truly, of course. Not to mention never before seen videos from me on how I've led dozens of women to meeting great men. And so as a thank you for watching this episode, I'm giving you a month's membership completely complimentary on me. Just click the Kits Angels link below, and when you join the group, message me the code phrase Angels Podcast, and I will pay for your membership. Now back to the episode.
Yeah.
End of.
I completely resonate with that. Do you ever have the consideration, because sometimes, a lot of the time, we can judge through people through our own standards. So we can go, okay, well, if I like you, I'm texting you every day.
Yeah.
And then, but then you can have someone else who's not a big texter, but that doesn't mean they don't like you, right? So does that ever come into play for you at all? Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes, so I'll be honest, like I'm really not a big texter. And that's, I would say, get me into trouble. That has sometimes miscommunicated. So sometimes, you know, if a girl's gone, oh, like, I really like texting. It's like, well, if I like you, I'll make an effort in that area. But that's because you've told me that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like, does that ever play into part for you?
That I think it definitely has. And it's something that, you know, I don't think when I was younger that I took into consideration. It was just like, if you like me, you would do this.
Yes. If he wanted to, he would.
Which I think to some extent is true, but obviously within the confines and context of who you are.
Yes.
So there was someone that I dated last year who, from the moment, and we met through work, so it wasn't romantic to start off with. And even at that point, he was like telling me that I'm bad with texting.
He was saying that to you?
Yeah, before it was romantic or even a consideration.
Right.
And then when we started dating, you know, the bad at texting thing showed up. And again, like, I'm going to be really honest with you. This is how I would like the communication to be. You're saying you're bad at texting. Can we find like a compromise?
Yeah, of course.
And ultimately, no, we didn't find a compromise.
Oh.
And so, you know, I think that tells me everything I need to know, right? Like, at that point, I'm kind of like, look, there's been options, there's been opportunities. We've spoken about this. It's been communicated. But some people I just think aren't for you. But I guess, yeah, I understand that, you know, people are busy, people have lives. I know that I have anxious attachment style, but someone else might have secure attachment. So they don't, you know, they're not kind of looking for that reassurance. Yeah. And as I've managed to like really start to like heal anxious attachment, I don't need it as much, which is fascinating to me, that it's like, oh, okay, it's okay to I can just exist and then, and not even think about it. Whereas in the past, it would be like
how do you get to that point for people who have an anxious attachment style where you can heal that, and especially if those thoughts come and often can spiral, like, oh, well, he didn't see me this, I know he was out, there was all of this stuff. How did you get to a point where you can let that go?
Again, I don't think anything's instant. And I think because of the kind of like, I think self-awareness is the key to everything. In terms of all the work that I've done and everything that I've done, self-awareness is the ultimate key, because I used to just be reactive. So I used to think, I felt like couldn't identify that I was triggered. This is just, so I was reacting from that triggered space. And thinking that was, the right thing to do, because it made sense in that triggered mind. It made perfect sense, right? But as I started to learn and understand more about myself, when I'm in a triggered state, it's like, right, this is not the right time to react or respond, need to come down, because then when I'm in a logical thinking space again, I'm like, why was I doing that? Like, why was I? So I think, self-awareness is always key for me. But again, like a couple of experiences that I've had over the last couple of years where the anxious attachment has shown up have given me the opportunity to really like dig deep into it and understanding. There's a book I read that's called Anxiously Attached, and that's been really helpful to understand that it's nothing to do with that person. It's to do with me. Like, it's about me and my needs not being met as a child. Like, that's what this is about, and that's not that person's responsibility. And it was a couple of years ago, I was walking with my friend Shaki, who's like, I love her, and she's had a very different like upbringing to me, and we were talking about something, and I was like in a like kind of just seeing somebody and the anxious attachment was showing up, and I was trying to explain it to her, and she's like, I just wouldn't care, like it wouldn't bother me at all. And I think having that conversation with her, I was like, shit, like this is not everyone's experience. Like, my experience is way too much, it's too emotional, it's exhausting, it's it was really painful. And that's when I was like, no, this is me, it's about me, it's not about them. And then I was kind of like, right, any opportunity that comes along where this stuff is triggered, that's a chance that I get to work on it and to kind of sit with it and really understand where it comes from, and not put it on the other person.
Hope you really enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full episode where that clip is from, then I want you to click right here where you can watch the full episode. And if you're ready to claim your man today, enroll in my program below, and I'll see you there. Wishing you an amazing day.